It's Friday, friends. Hope everyone's doing well. This is Neil Adler with another episode of Syracuse Central on the Fan Arch Network. Hope everyone's had a great week. It's flown by. And here we are on Friday, and Syracuse football has a game tomorrow. So we'll dive into some Syracuse football stuff. And let me know what you think the score is going to be. Drop me some comments. I think Syracuse is going to win. I don't care what the spread is, and I think it was like 6.5, 5.5, whatever it is right now. Could be a little less, a little more. Syracuse is at home. They're 3-1. Duke's 2-2. Obviously, the spread factors in that Syracuse is using their backup quarterback now, Ricky Collins, in for the injured Steve Angeli. I get it in terms of the odds and all that, the spread, but and Angeli, to his credit, was leading the country in passing yards heading into the Clemson game last week. So, big shoes to fill. But as I've talked about this week on Syracuse Central, I don't think there's like this big drop off. Let's remember that Ricky Collins transferred in during the winter portal window. Had some time with Kyle McCord, as they were preparing for their bowl game and whatnot. Went through spring practice or off-season workouts, and then into spring practice, and he was named the starter, and then Angeli transferred after him. So, and then he won, but it was a close competition. And Collins, he obviously doesn't have a lot of experience, but this is his third year in college, and he's kind of shadowed some really good quarterbacks, including a former Heisman Trophy winner. So again, this segment's about the score, so I'm kind of getting around that here, but I think Syracuse is going to win, and I'm not saying they're going to win by a ton because Duke can put up points, and they have a really good quarterback in Mensah, and he's thrown for a bunch of yards, and he's got, I think, 11 touchdowns, 2 picks. So Duke can throw. I don't think Duke's defense is anything overly impressive. Syracuse's defense gives up a lot of yards, but they had some really nice moments at Clemson, and now they're home. So again, what's this final score going to be? 31 to 20 to 20, or 31 to 24. I don't know. I just think Syracuse is going to win. I don't think it's going to be like any type of blowout. I think the keys for Syracuse is certainly the offensive line wants to give Ricky Collins time to settle in terms of just containing the defensive front, giving him time. I think Ricky, it's hard. We don't have a big sample, but I could see him if he's like getting a lot of, obviously sacked a lot or quarterback hurries, like maybe start making some bad decisions with his throws. But if he has more time to throw and kind of see it, get the reads and everything right, and time to settle in, I think he'll be fine. Duke's not a cupcake, but they're not like, what were they, like, picked to finish 6th in the conference? I think Syracuse was 12th. Not that the preseason bowls mean anything, because Clemson was picked to win it again, and they're 1-3. So, I think another really big key is to Syracuse have a really good ground game, just to kind of take some pressure off Ricky, so he doesn't feel like he has to like win the game himself. So Yassine Willis, Will Nixon, whoever, those are the two main guys. Just have a good rushing attack, solid, sustained drives, keep drives going, score some points. Special teams was solid, so we'll want to see the special teams, be sound again. On the defensive side, again, Duke throws the ball well. So Syracuse's defensive line is, whether you're talking about the inside guys or the guys out on the edge, they're going to want to try and get some pressure on Mensah, and whether it's sacks or QB hurries or whatever the stats say, just make him uncomfortable. And, Duke doesn't have an amazing rushing attack, but then again, statistically, I think they're averaging more yards per game on the ground than Syracuse, but I don't know. I think Syracuse will be fine in the running department. yeah, and then just Syracuse's linebackers and the secondary, they just have to be sound. I mean, they gave up a lot of yards to Clemson, but they had key stops on third down and fourth down, and stuff in the red zone and all that. So, just making those key, not making a lot of mental mistakes, and they'll have the home crowd, and it's going to be a sellout, and win the turnover battle. So, again, I'm not saying anything earth shattering here, but I really think the key is to just be solid. Be solid. Allow Ricky to have time to settle in and just be solid in all phases, and I think they'll be okay. So again, let me know what you think in terms of the score. So I saw an interesting article. It was on 24/7 Sports on, I think it was either Wednesday or Thursday, and it talked about teams that are thriving despite like a very notable and even high paid guy transferring out. So and they brought up Syracuse, and they brought up Trevor Pena, who's at Penn State. And look, I don't have any like whatever. If he went to Penn State, you wish him well. I know a lot of fans don't like wishing former players well when they transfer out, but I mean, he's just doing what's best for him. It's cool. And if he got paid, good for him. I feel like there was like reports, or I don't know if it was Fran Brown or whoever saying $2 million or whatever. I mean, I don't know if that's true or not, to be honest. But the article talked about, it brings up the larger point, and I really feel like, let me know what you think. I feel like Syracuse's wide receiver room is one of the best in the country. And again, we're only in week 5, and you know they were they had Steve Angeli, who was the nation's leading passer, up until he got injured in the Clemson game. So we'll see how it goes with Ricky Collins, but I just really like this wide receiver group. You've got Daryl Gill Jr., who's been really good, and Justice Ross Simmons, and they both were on the You Got Mossed, stuff on ESPN. Great publicity for the school. But Jonte Cook's had some good games. Valari's been really good. He's one of the top tight ends in the country in terms of receiving yards, if I'm not mistaken. We haven't seen Emmanuel Ross because he's been injured. We haven't seen Umari Hatcher, and I don't know what's going on there. I really do not understand it. Demetrius Samuel, the two-way player, he's had one catch, so it's not like he's done a lot there. But some of the other young guys like Jalen Hornsby or Darren Williams, Gabe Daniels, some of those guys got in primarily in the win over Colgate just because it was a blowout, and so a lot of reserves got in. But that being said, again, I think this is a really interesting, intriguing wide receiver room. And then you've also got out of the backfield Nixon and Willis. So, and Jamie Trumbull, although he's playing a lot of linebacker these days as well. But it's a really good room. I'm just gonna grab some water here. It's a really good room, and Angeli did a good job of spreading it around, and hopefully Ricky will do the same thing. But yeah, for my money, I can't think of too many wide receiver rooms that have as much balance as Syracuse's. And again, I know it's only 4 games, and we'll see as they get in. They got Duke, then they got SMU and Pitt, and then they got some tough ones against at Miami, at Notre Dame, at Georgia Tech, etc. So we'll see how this all shakes out. But as it stands right now, their wide receiver room is I would put up against any other one. So again, I don't have any hatred towards Pena. I mean, there was reports that he supposedly made comments about he didn't know how much trust he had in Ricky Collins, because that was obviously before Angeli came in, and I don't know if that was 100% accurate, but if he did say that, it's kind of messed up, but whatever. Again, he's at Penn State. They're a top 3 team, probably in line to make the playoff again. So whatever. But Syracuse is doing just fine. I'll leave it at that. So in the wake of Syracuse beating Clemson, Fran Brown, I can't remember the outlet, but he was named National Coach of the Week, and he's getting all this buzz, so to speak, from talking heads and pundits about in the next coaching cycle in the off season, is he going to get offers from bigger schools? And one report in the USA Today, I believe it was, said Fran Brown will be the hottest SEC coaching target in the next hiring cycle. And I saw that and I was like, oh no, that's not good, the SEC. But I mean, he came from the SEC. most recently before he came to the Hill, he was the defensive backs coach at Georgia. So, it wouldn't surprise me. Now, I mean, this is like week to week stuff, and so Syracuse is 3-1 right now, but if they end the season at 5-7 or 6-6, maybe that kind of talk will die down. But again, if they go 10-2 or 9-3 or even 8-4 and win a bowl game, go to a good bowl game, yeah, I get it. I mean, it's not just about, and so he was 10-3 last year, it's 3-1, so overall he's what, 13-4. But it's not just even wins and losses. It's just like people respect him because he keeps it real. He is very, as far as I can tell, very honest and open. Um, he's big on community and his players doing well in school and conducting themselves well. Like, it's just the culture he's building. Now, if I'm not mistaken, when he was hired, didn't he say something like he was never leaving or he was going to be here forever or for a really long time? So, I mean, that was like in what, December of 2023 when he was formally introduced. So, a lot can happen. Um, I don't know if John Wildhack, the athletics director, are they having conversations about a long-term extension? I feel like he's addressed that a little bit, like earlier this year, maybe even before the season started. Certainly, a lot of fans have chimed in, lock him in long-term and all that jazz. But again, even if he has a long-term deal, I mean, guys have buyouts, and if a big SEC school, like if they want him and he wants to, like, they'll just pay them. So I guess my point here is that let's just enjoy Fran Brown while we have him. I'm not suggesting he's leaving after this year. I don't have any inside information on that, and I think it's too early to speculate, but it's also kind of flattering. It's kind of flattering that these articles are being written by national writers or like on national shows. I can't remember who it was. Someone else was talking about, yeah, he was like the hottest coach in the country. It was some. I'm sorry, I'm having a senior moment. But anyway, there's just a lot of chatter this week about him, and obviously he's doing well, and Syracuse is recruiting well, and they're playing well, and he just like the program and the culture and everything, and just other players from other teams respect him. Coaches from other teams respect him. So yeah, I mean, if there are some teams in the SEC, hi Florida, that fire their coaches, and we've already seen some coaches let go at UCLA and Virginia Tech. I'm not saying he's a candidate for either of those jobs. But yeah, I mean, certainly as other jobs open up, whether it's in the season, although I don't think Fran Brown would ever bail on his team in the middle of the season. But as in the off season, if there's some prime vacancies, he might get offered, and if he goes, I'm sure some fans would be like, "Ugh, dude, where's your loyalty?" But like, he's just like any other person that has an employer, and if they get offered a better job or higher paying job or a job that's better for him and his family, I mean, I would be freaking sad like nobody's business, but like, can you blame him? He gets offered like a head coaching job in the SEC, and like, he thinks that's the best thing for him and his family, and he's got kids and all. Go for it, man. I'm not saying that's going to happen, but it's like on the one hand, it's like I don't want to see these like articles written by USA Today or wherever else, or on like major shows where they're talking about, oh yeah, he's gonna be like the hottest, coaching target, in the offseason. Like, no, keep him a secret. But the secret's out, dude. I mean, he went 10-3 last year. Was ranked 20th in the country. They won their bowl game. They beat a couple ranked teams. He recruiting like gangbusters, at least as far as historically speaking, it's on the Hill. And again, it's just he's got a lot of respect and he just seems like a good human being, and but also demanding and dart in the culture they're building. So like, I get it if people would be after him in terms of a bigger job, so to speak. But then again, he's from New Jersey, and he's grew up as a Syracuse fan, and there's like a lot of he's got this extremely tight with guys on the staff, including Elijah Robinson. They grew up in Camden together, and Nixon and Nunzi. Just list goes on and on. So he's got a good thing going, and maybe maybe his family settled in Syracuse and likes that, and so we'll see. But it's a double-edged sword. It's like a good problem to have if this kind of chatter is going on, because it means he's doing well and Syracuse is doing well, and that's my focus and that's your focus because we love Syracuse. So, but at the same time, it's like, I don't want this. So I want him to keep winning, and if he gets offered another job and takes it, I wish him well. And if they keep winning and he gets offered jobs and it's like, nah, Syracuse is my jam, cool, you know? So I'll leave it at that. And we'll just end up here with a little recruiting nugget. I saw a couple different reports. I think one was on Rivals. I want to make sure we always credit, other reports. Not everything always comes from me directly, but I thought it was kind of interesting. So Colorado, Deion Sanders, they are going to have some recruiting targets on campus this weekend, and they play BYU, which I think is ranked 25th in the country, or like late 20s, for a Big 12 battle. And one of them is a Syracuse verbal commit, Javion Cooper, the offensive tackle, 4-star offensive tackle from Melbourne Central Catholic in Florida. And I think it was Rivals, they talked about he was a major priority for Colorado. And quote, let me get my notes here. Quote, Cooper is one that looks to be on an upward trend with Colorado ahead of the visit. Upward trend, I mean, it's recruiting jargon saying, they're pursuing him, and maybe there's there's some interest there. Well, there's obviously some interest. He's going on a visit. One thing I wasn't sure if it was an official visit or not. I guess it doesn't really matter. It probably is. It's one thing if these guys take unofficials to campuses that are nearby. But, when he's going from Florida to Colorado, you got to assumably hop on a plane. So you probably want it to be an official visit, so the school pays for it. Anyway, regardless of that, look, I've talked about this on Syracuse Central a couple times. The 2026 class for Syracuse has multiple 4-stars, and then Calvin Russell is a 5-star. And multiple of those highly ranked commits are from Florida. And Syracuse is recruiting well in Florida, but these guys are highly rated, so other schools aren't going to just be like, oh, no, they committed to Syracuse. No, they're going to try and flip them, just like Syracuse is trying to. It happens, whatever. But, we've talked about some of the other guys, whether it's Calvin Russell having visited unofficially Miami because it's his hometown team. Some of the other 4-stars, Cameron Wilson, Darius Rogers, Amari Goff, who's a 4-star wide receiver from Richmond, Virginia, from Virginia. But other guys, like 3-stars, like I talked about Stephen Picard, who's originally from Syracuse and plays at IMG, and he's visited other campuses and being pursued by other teams. So it happens. Maybe some of them will flip. Hopefully a lot of them won't flip, because, this class, I believe it's at 29 pledges and, hovering around the top 25, top 30 nationally, which is like very highly ranked for Syracuse, historically speaking, since recruiting rankings really came into forefront, in the early, I guess, 2000s. So, we'll keep an eye on it. Like, I don't blame these guys for taking visits, whether official or unofficial, and just kind of making sure everything's good. I know some fans, respond to me on social media saying, oh, there's no loyalty and this and that. Well, dude, it's recruiting. I mean, whatever. They're verbally committed. Nothing is binding right now. The early signing period isn't for football is in early December, and basketball it's in usually in mid-November. But if some of them flip, some of them flip. I don't know too. I haven't been hearing too much about potential flip candidates to Syracuse in 2026. I mean, they've gone after some guys that are verbally committed elsewhere in terms of they visited maybe over the summer, whether it's CJ Hester is committed to Florida, or to Darius Hughes, who plays at Miami Northwestern with Calvin Russell, and he's committed to Florida State. But I haven't heard a lot about that kind of stuff, and their class is at 29. It's decent, it's good size. So we'll see. I hope Javion has a awesome visit, and I hope he doesn't flip his play. I mean, obviously, I don't remember off the top of my head what Colorado's record is this year. I don't think they've been super great. But, dude, it's Deion Sanders. I get it. I think there was actually something floating around online yesterday. There had been talk about trying to do a spring scrimmage thingy between Colorado and Syracuse, and then it didn't happen for this year. And they but I feel like, I don't know if it was Fran or Dion. It might have been Fran actually that was quoted as saying, that they're trying to do it for next spring. So those two guys seem to like each other. And, if they go head to head for some recruits, cool. And they're both um, energetic coaches with a lot of, what's the word? Not possess, charisma. They're just, personalities, just entertaining guys, like good guys. I mean, I don't really know as much. I know Dion in terms of like his being a professional athlete and all that, but I don't obviously cover him. But Fran is just an engaging, interesting dude, and it'd be cool if they did that scrimmage. And like I said, I hope Javion has an awesome visit to Boulder and he doesn't flip. So, friends, like I said, drop me a comment. Let me know what you think the score of the Duke game is going to be. Like I said, I think Syracuse is going to win by 7 to 10 points. Hopefully I'm right. I'm usually not. You can feel free to yell at me next week if I am. But I hope you enjoyed the show. This is Neil Adler with Syracuse Central on the Fan Arch Network. Have a great weekend. Enjoy the game on Saturday. I'll obviously have more coverage for Syracuse Central on Monday about the Duke game, and then football, basketball, and recruiting later on in the week. Thanks, friends. Take care.